Hi friends, my name is Akil Ahmed, and in this particular video tutorial I will show you how to load dimension table in SQL using SSIS. So recently I got a question from one of my subscriber Chandra Prakash Naidu, and he asked, could you please make a video on the fact table and dimension tables? This will be the video on loading the data to the dimension table, and I will be creating another video on how to load the data to the fact table. So there are three types of slowly changing dimensions, and those can be used to load the data to the dimension tables. The first type of loading the data to the dimension table is SCD type 1, which is also called as changing attribute. So SCD type 1 is used to override the existing data in the dimension table with the data from the transactional table. So no history of the existing data is kept, data is actually overwritten. The second one is SCD type 2, which is also called as historical attribute. SCD type 2 is used to maintain the history of the existing data along with the new data in the dimension table. We can insert a new record for SCD type 2, and we can use the start date and end date in the dimension table to identify the active record. A null value in the end date column denotes that it's the active record. The third one is the SCD fixed attribute. SCD fixed attribute is used if we do not want to change the data for a column over a period of time. So for example, if you want that a column data should remain static over a period of time, then we can use SCD fixed attribute for such cases. So let's jump to the demo. In this particular example, I will be using a FEMCell database and FEMCell DW database, data warehouse database. So in the FEMCell database, I have several tables like customers table, employees table, orders, and product table. So in this particular video, I will show you how we can load the employee table from transactional database to the data warehouse database. So we have a dimension.employee table. So I will be loading the data from the employee table from the transactional system to the dimension.employee table into the data warehouse system. So if you see the data in the source system, then we have 100 records in the source system. So we have the values like employee ID, which is the business key in this particular case, and then like first name, last name, some other fields, phone number, email, and then we have two fields, valid from and valid to. Okay, and if you see the dimension table, this is the dimension.employee table. So this table is empty as of now. Okay, so because we want to handle the SCD type 1 and SCD type 2 records, so we will create the two staging tables in the destination database. So I will be creating the employee underscore insert table, which will be used for SCD type 2 for inserting the new records, and then I will be using the employee underscore update table, which will be used to override the data into the existing table. So this table will be used as for SCD type 1. Okay, and for the fixed attribute, we don't need to write any code because we don't want to change the columns. Those are, for example, for the fixed attributes. So in the employee table, we need to define the columns like SCD type 1, which columns you want to treat as SCD type 1, and which columns you want to treat as SCD type 2, and which column you want to make as fixed attribute columns. Okay, so in this particular table, I want to set the log on name and the email as SCD type 1. Means if the log on name or email got updated in the transactional system, then this particular record should be updated in the dimension table and the data should be overwritten. Okay, so this will be used as SCD type 1. Then I want to make the phone number and a fax number as SCD type 2. It means that whenever a phone number got updated in the transactional system, or if a fax number got updated in the transactional system, then what should happen that in the dimension table, the existing record should be expired, the valid to should be updated with the current date to the existing record, and a new record should be inserted with the latest phone number or the latest fax number to the dimension table. And for the fixed attribute, so all the columns except these 4 columns, they will be treated as the fixed attribute. So if we update anything in the source system, then we don't need to do anything in the dimension table. Okay, and for example, if you want to update all the columns in the dimension table, then you can set all the columns in the SCD type 1. Okay, so this is how we will be writing the SSIS package, that these will be the columns for SCD type 1, these will be the columns for SCD type 2, and all the remaining columns will be treated as the fixed attributes. So let me open the SSIS package, and first of all we will be using an execute SQL task, and we will be dropping and recreating the staging table. So in this particular case, we have the two staging tables, employee underscore insert and employee underscore update. So we will be recreating these tables every time. And there is one more thing, that I will share all the scripts used in this particular demo with you, so you can download all the scripts. Like you can download the script to create this table and insert 100 records into this particular table, and then I will share the scripts to create the employee underscore insert table, employee underscore update table, and dimension.employee table, and all these scripts I will share. And I will also share all the update queries. Those will be used in the SSIS package. So you can just check the description of the video and you can download it from there. So let me open the SSIS package, and the first task that we will be using is the execute SQL task, and I will call this task as create staging tables, and then I will make a connection to the fem cell data warehouse database. New connection. So I already have a connection here, fem cell dw. So I will use this connection, and in the SQL statement I will write the code to drop and recreate these two tables, employee underscore insert, drop and create to this one. So what this will do, that it will check if the employee underscore insert table will be there, then it will drop it and then it will recreate the table. So I can copy the code from here, paste it here, and then I can just close this one, and then similarly I can generate the create table statement for the employee underscore update table. So I can copy this code from here and I can paste it here as well. Now I can click on OK. Now the another task that I will be using is the data flow task, and this will be the main task where I will check like what are the records to be inserted and what will be the records to be updated or ignored. Okay, so I will call this as migrate data to dimension table. Okay, and in this particular task I will be using an OLEDB source, and in the OLEDB source I will change the data access mode to SQL command, and here I will write the query to pull the data from the source table. Source table is my this one, femcell.employee table. Okay, so maybe I can just copy this query from here and paste it here. So it will select all the columns from the employee table from the source system. I can click on OK, and now I will be using a lookup transformation. Lookup transformation is used to compare two data set, and now because we have two data set, the transactional data set and the dimension.employee data set. So we will join the transactional table with the dimension.employee table based on the employee ID. Employee ID is the business key here. So if you check in the dimension table, we have the employee ID, and in the source system as well we have the employee ID. So we can make a join on the employee ID, and then we can figure out which are the new records and which are the updated records. Okay, so we can connect the OLEDB source with the lookup transformation, and then I can right click and configure the lookup transformation. Under specify how you handle rows with no matching entries, we will set it to ignore failure, and then we will click on the connection. In the collection, the fem cell dw database is selected, and then we will use this option, use results of an SQL query. Okay, and here we need to write the SQL query. We want to select the data from the dimension.employee table where the valid to is null. So we actually want to get the all active records from the dimension.employee tables. So let me select the data from this particular table, dimension.employee, and I will remove this top 1000 clause from here. Yeah, I don't need the valid to, and I will remove this employee SK as well. Employee SK is the identity column, and which is also a surrogate key. So we don't need this particular column in this particular query. So I will be selecting the data where in this particular table where valid to is null. Valid to is null means the active records from the table. Alright, so right now this table is empty, and I can copy this query from here and paste it here. Now I can go to the columns, and now in the columns I can connect the employee ID with the employee ID of the lookup column. So the lookup columns are the columns, those are written from the dimension table, and on the left side those are the columns from the transactional system. So I will select all the columns from the lookup transformation. Right now we got a minor issue that our source column name and the dimension column names are same, because we have the employee ID in the source, we have employee ID in the dimension table, then we have first name in the source, last name in the source, and then we have first name in the dimension table, last name in the dimension table. So it's kind of tricky to figure out like what are the column names from the employee table and what are the column names from the source system. So what we will do in the output alias, we will append dest underscore to all the columns. Those are the columns from the destination table or from the dimension dot employee table. Okay, so I will put the dest underscore to all the fields so that we know that these are the fields from the dimension table. Now I can click on OK. Now what we will do, we will use a conditional split transformation and we will connect the lookup transformation matched output. So from the output I will select the lookup match output and I can click on OK, and now we can configure the conditional split transformation. So in the conditional split transformation we will create three cases. The first cases will be for the new records, because we are doing a join on the employee ID between the source system and between the dimension table. So if the employee ID of the dimension table will be null, it means that those records are the new records. Okay, so what we can do, there is a isNull function here, so I can just drag and drop the isNull function into the condition, and here we can select the dest employee ID column. So if dest employee ID will be null, so it means that these are the new records. Okay, and now we need to check, like, the second condition will be, we need to figure out what are the SCD type 2 columns. Okay, so SCD type, so now there are two columns, SCD type 1, SCD type 2 and the fixed attribute. Because we do not want to change the fixed attribute, so we can ignore them, and we want to check the logon name and email as SCD type 1. Okay, so what we can do for the logon name, that we can just drag and drop the logon name, that if logon name not equal to dash logon name. So if logon name from the transitional system is not equal to dash logon name, so this is one of the condition for the SCD type 1. Okay, so I will call it as SCD type 1. So this is the first condition. Now another condition is we can put an OR here. So the OR is like we can put two tabs here, and then the another one is email. So if email from the source system is not equal to the dashed email, okay, then this will be the second condition. So if this condition will be true, then the records will be moved to the SCD type 1 output. Okay, different outputs will be created from the conditional split transformation according to the case that will become the true. Okay, now the third one is SCD type 2. Okay, so in SCD type 2 we will check if phone number is not equal and fax number is not equal. So the third output will be SCD type 2, and we will check that if phone number from the transactional system is not equal to dashed phone number from the dimension table, or if the fax number from the source system is not equal to the fax number from the destinations table, then this will go into the SCD type 2. Okay, so these are the outputs I have created, and any remaining data will go into the conditional split default output. So it will create actually 4 outputs. Okay, so I can click on OK, and now I need to use the OLEDB destination, and in the OLEDB destination I need to just insert the appropriate data. Okay, so the first destination will be the new records. Okay, so if there will be new records, then the new records will be directly inserted to the dimension dot employee table. So I can just connect the conditional split with the new records, and from the output I will select the new records, and I can click on OK. Now I can configure the new records, and I can select the dimension dot employee table. If I click on mappings, so you can see that all the input columns got mapped with the destination column because the column names are same, and only column that is remaining to be mapped is the employee SK, which is the identity columns. So the value for the employee SK will be generated automatically. Now I can click on OK. Now I can just drag and drop another OLEDB destination, and this one I will call as SCD type 1. Okay, this will also be, you can call as updated records. If you remember, we created two tables, employee underscore update and employee underscore insert. So in this case we will be using the employee underscore update table. Okay, so we can just connect the conditional split output with the SCD type 1. So from the output I will select SCD type 1, and I can click on OK, and now I can configure the SCD type 1 OLEDB destination. From the tables I will select employee underscore update, and if I go to the mappings, then all the input columns have been mapped with the destination columns. So this is good. I can click on OK. Now I can just drag and drop the third destination into the data flow task, and I will call this one as SCD type 2. Okay, and now I can connect the conditional split transformation with the SCD type 2, and I can select the output as SCD type 2, and I can click on OK. So SCD type 2 is the employee underscore insert table. Okay, so I can just configure this one, and I can select the employee underscore insert table, because whatever records will be for the SCD type 2, those will insert into the employee underscore insert table. Then I can click on mappings to make sure that all the input columns have been mapped with the destination column. So this is good. I can click on OK. So this data flow task has been configured. Now for the SCD type 1, we need to update the data from the employee underscore update table to the dimension.employee table. Okay, so for that, for updating the data, we will be using the execute SQL task, and I can connect with the data flow task with the execute SQL task, and I can call it as update SCD type 1 records. Okay, and then I can just make a connection to the FIM cell DW database. In the SQL statement, I need to write the update query. Okay, so I have already written the update query because it might take some time to write it. So I can just show you what I'm doing here. So what I'm doing, that I'm going to update the dimension.employee table from the employee underscore update table for the SCD type 1 records, and based on the join of the employee ID. And for the SCD type 1, we have the logon name and email as the SCD type 1 field. So we are just updating the logon name from the employee underscore update table to the dimension.employee table, and similarly we are updating the email column of dimension.employee table from the email column of the employee underscore update column. So this is for SCD type 1, and now this is for the SCD type 2. So what we are doing here, that for SCD type 2, because a new record will be inserted, so we need to expand the existing record. So what we are doing, we are just making a join between the dimension.employee table and the employee underscore insert table based on a join on the employee ID, and the existing records where the valid to is null, those will be updated with the get date. So we are actually expiring the existing data for a particular record, and we will insert a new record. Okay, so we can just copy this particular query from here, I can paste it here, and now I can click on OK, and I can click on OK. So the last task that is remaining is that we need to merge the data for SCD type 2 into the dimension.employee table. So we can just drag and drop the data flow task into the control flow window, and then we can connect the execute SQL task with the data flow task, and we can call the data flow task as merge SCD type 2 records to employee dimension. Okay, this is how we want to do. So now we can just double click this particular data flow task, and in the OLEDB source we want to select the data from the insert table. We got a table here, employee underscore insert. Okay, so we want to select the data from this particular table. So I can copy this particular query from here, and then I can configure the OLEDB source. From data access mode, I will select SQL command, and I can paste the query. If you see, these are the columns, those will be inserted. I can click on OK, and now we can just drag and drop the OLEDB destination here. So the data from the SCD type 2 table will be inserted to the dimension.employee table. Okay, I can click on mappings to make sure that all input columns have been mapped with the destination columns. So you can see that only two columns are remaining, the employee SK to be mapped. So employee SK is a surrogate key which is identity columns, so it will generate a value automatically, and valid to is null. So valid to will always be null for the active records. Okay, so I can click on OK. So now our SSIS package is ready to be run, and yeah, so I think let me show you that the dimension table is empty as of now. Okay, so this table is empty, and even all three tables are empty right now, and we have the 100 records in the transactional system. So let me execute the SSIS package, and this should insert 100 records to the dimension.employee table. So if you check the data flow task, so 100 records came from the source system, and then all 100 records went to the new records table. New records table is the dimension.employee table. So if you check the data in the dimension.employee table, so there should be 100 records there. Data got inserted correctly, and the valid to is null for all the records, which means that these are the active records. Okay, so this ran fine. Now we can check if SCD type 1, SCD type 2 and fixed attributes are configured correctly or not, if the code is written correctly or not. Okay, so what we will do, that this is our source table, femcell.dbo.employee table, and this is a data warehouse table, femcelldw.dimension.employee. So for the employee ID 3, if you check, the value of the email is same because the data is same. All data got inserted just now from the source system to the dimension table. Okay, so in the SCD type 1, what will happen that if I change any records in the source system, then that particular record should be updated in the dimension table. Okay, the data should be overwritten. So for this particular record, employee 3, the email is this one, APLQZHQE, something like this. Okay, and in the destination table as well, this is the same data. So let me update the same record, the employee ID 3. Let me change the email to pablo@gmail.com in the source table. Okay, so let me update the data. If you check the data now, so you can see that in the source system the email is pablo@gmail.com, but in the destination table, in the dimension table, we still have the old record because we have not run the SSIS package. But if I will execute the SSIS package, then the email value should be overwritten in the destination table. So let me go back to the SSIS package and rerun this particular SSIS package. So this should update one record to the dimension table. So you can see that 100 records came from the source system and only one record went to the SCD type 1. SCD type 1 is the updated records. Okay, so if I execute this particular query, so you can see that the email address of the employee ID 3 got updated here. So this is the SCD type 1. Okay, now SCD type 2 is that a new record should be inserted to the dimension table and existing record should be expired. Should be expired means the value of valid 2 should not be null, it should be updated with the current date time. So for example, if you check the employee ID 5, so the data is same, whatever data we have in the source system, same data we have in the dimension table. Now what we want to do, we want to update the phone number of this particular record in the source system. Okay, so if I update the data in the source system and if I execute the SSIS package, then what should happen, that this particular record should be expired, the valid 2 should be updated with the current date time instance, and a new record with the new phone number should be inserted to the dimension table. So there should be 2 records in the dimension table, the one record with the old phone number and a new record with the new phone number. Okay, so let me execute the SSIS package again. So you can see that 100 records came from the source, but after the conditional split transformation, only one record went to the SCD type 2. SCD type 2 means historical attribute. And if I rerun this particular select query, so you can see that the existing record has been expired with the current date time instance and a new record with the new phone number got inserted to the dimension table, and the employee SK is 101 because this is an identity column, employee surrogate key. Okay, now the third one is the fixed attribute. Okay, so fixed attribute means that the data should not change over a period of time. So all the columns like first name, last name, all the columns except logon name, phone number, fax number and email, all other columns are the fixed attribute columns according to our SSIS package configuration. Okay, so the last name is also fixed attribute column as of now. So if you see for the employee ID 7, the last name is Trevino. Okay, Trevino in the source system and Trevino in the destination system. Now if I update this particular table, the source table, and if I update the last name to Tom, so I updated the last name to Tom in the source table, but in the destination table it is still Trevino, and if I rerun the SSIS package, then this value, the last name, should not change because it's a fixed attribute and I do not want the SSIS package to change this particular value. So if I rerun the SSIS package again, then you will notice that this value, the last name, will never got changed. Okay, so 100 records came from the source system, but after the conditional split transformation, none of the records got inserted to the new records or SCD type 1 or SCD type 2. Okay, and if you rerun this particular query, the value of the last name should be unchanged in the dimension table. So you can see that we still have the last name value unchanged here. So this was about like loading the data into the dimension table, how we can load the data into the dimension table using SSIS package. So I think that's it for today's video. Thank you guys for watching the video, and if you like the video, then please click the like button. Do subscribe to our channel, press the bell icon and click on all so that you will be notified every time I upload a new video. Thank you so much.